Exodus. Chapter 14. Then Jehovah spoke to Moses, saying, Tell the children of Israel to turn back and camp before Pi-hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea. You shall camp before Baal-zephon, opposite it, by the sea. And Pharaoh will say of the children of Israel, They are wandering aimlessly in the land, the wilderness has hemmed them in. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will pursue after them, and I will glorify myself through Pharaoh and through all his army, and the Egyptians will know that I am Jehovah. And they did so. And when it was told to the king of Egypt that the people had fled, the heart of Pharaoh and his servants changed toward the people, and they said, What is this we have done, letting Israel go from serving us? So he yoked his chariot and took his people with him. And he took 600 chosen chariots and all the other chariots of Egypt with officers over all of them. And Jehovah hardened the heart of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, so that he pursued after the children of Israel as the children of Israel were going out with a high hand. And the Egyptians pursued after them, all the horses and chariots of Pharaoh and his horsemen and his army, and they overtook them as they encamped by the sea, beside Pi-hahiroth, before Baal-zephon. And when Pharaoh approached, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes, and there the Egyptians were, marching after them, and they became very afraid, and the children of Israel cried out to Jehovah. And they said to Moses, Is it because there were no graves in Egypt that you have taken us away to die in the wilderness? Why have you done this to us, bringing us out of Egypt? Is this not the very thing that we spoke to you about in Egypt, saying, Leave us alone that we may serve the Egyptians? For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness. But Moses said to the people, Do not be afraid, stand firm, and see the salvation of Jehovah, which he will accomplish for you today, for the Egyptians whom you have seen today, you will see no more again forever. Jehovah will fight for you, and you will be still. And Jehovah said to Moses, Why do you cry out to me? Tell the children of Israel to move forward. And you, lift up your staff, and stretch out your hand over the sea, and divide it, and the children of Israel shall go into the midst of the sea on dry ground. And I will now harden the hearts of the Egyptians, and they shall go in after them, and I will glorify myself through Pharaoh and through all his army, through his chariots and through his horsemen. Then the Egyptians will know that I am Jehovah when I glorify myself through Pharaoh, through his chariots and through his horsemen. And the angel of God, who went before the camp of Israel, moved and went behind them, and the pillar of cloud moved from before them and stood behind them. And it came between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel. And the cloud was there with the darkness, yet it gave light by night to them. Thus one did not come near the other all night. And when Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, Jehovah caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all the night and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea upon the dry ground, and the waters were a wall to them on their right hand and on their left. Then the Egyptians pursued, and all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen went in after them into the midst of the sea. And at the morning watch Jehovah looked down upon the camp of the Egyptians in the pillar of fire and of cloud and threw the camp of the Egyptians into confusion. And he caused their chariot wheels to swerve and made them drive with difficulty, so that the Egyptians said, Let us flee from Israel, for Jehovah is fighting for them against the Egyptians. And Jehovah said to Moses, Stretch out your hand over the sea so that the waters come back over the Egyptians, over their chariots and over their horsemen. And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to its level when the morning appeared. And the Egyptians fled against it, and Jehovah overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. And as the waters returned, they covered the chariots and the horsemen, even all the army of Pharaoh that went in after them into the sea, not even one of them was left. But the children of Israel walked on dry land through the midst of the sea, and the waters were a wall to them on their right hand and on their left. Thus Jehovah saved Israel that day out of the hand of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead upon the seashore. And when Israel saw the great power which Jehovah exercised against the Egyptians, the people feared Jehovah, and they believed in Jehovah and in his servant Moses. Exodus chapter 15. Then Moses and the children of Israel sang this song to Jehovah and spoke, saying, I will sing to Jehovah, for he has triumphed gloriously, the horse and its rider he has cast into the sea. Jah is my strength and song, and he has become my salvation. This is my God, and I will praise him, my father's God, and I will exalt him. Jehovah is a man of war, Jehovah is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and his army he has thrown into the sea, and his choice officers have drowned in the Red Sea. The deep waters cover them, they went down into the depths like a stone. Your right hand, O Jehovah, is glorious in power, your right hand, O Jehovah, dashed the enemy in pieces. And in the greatness of your excellence you overthrew those who rose up against you. You sent forth your burning wrath, it consumed them like stubble. And with the blast of your nostrils the waters were heaped up, the flowing currents stood up like a heap, the deep waters congealed in the heart of the sea. The enemy said, I will pursue, I will overtake, I will divide the spoil, my desire will be satisfied upon them, I will draw my sword, my hand will destroy them. You blew with your wind, the sea covered them, they sank like lead in the mighty waters. Who is like you, O Jehovah, among the gods? Who is like you, splendid in holiness, awesome in praises, doing wonders? You stretched out your right hand, the earth swallowed them. In your loving kindness you have led the people whom you have redeemed, you have guided them in your strength to your holy habitation. The peoples heard, they trembled. Pangs have seized the inhabitants of Philistia. Then the chiefs of Edom are dismayed, the mighty men of Moab, trembling has seized them, all the inhabitants of Canaan have melted away. Terror and dread have fallen upon them, by the greatness of your arm they have become as still as stone, until your people passed over, O Jehovah, until the people whom you purchased passed over. You will bring them in and plant them in the mountain of your inheritance, the place, O Jehovah, which you have made for your dwelling, the sanctuary, O Lord, which your hands have established. Jehovah shall reign forever and ever. For the horses of Pharaoh with his chariots and with his horsemen went into the sea, and Jehovah brought back the waters of the sea upon them while the children of Israel walked on dry land through the midst of the sea. And Miriam the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took a tambourine in her hand, and all the women went out after her with tambourines and with dancing. And Miriam responded to them, Sing to Jehovah, for he has triumphed gloriously, the horse and its rider he has cast into the sea. Then Moses moved Israel onward from the Red Sea, and they went out into the wilderness of Shur. And they went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. And when they came to Marah, they could not drink of the waters of Marah, for they were bitter, therefore its name was called Marah. And the people murmured against Moses, saying, What shall we drink? And he cried out to Jehovah, and Jehovah showed him a tree, and he cast it into the waters, and the waters became sweet. There he made for them a statute and an ordinance, and there he tested them. And he said, If you will listen carefully to the voice of Jehovah your God and do what is right in his eyes and give ear to his commandments and keep all his statutes, I will put none of the diseases on you which I have put on the Egyptians, for I am Jehovah who heals you. And they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees, and they encamped there by the waters.